The Travelling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arikawa. Chapter 1. The Husband Without a Wife. Long time no see, so began the email. It was from Satoru Miyawaki, a childhood friend of Kasu who had moved away when he was in elementary school. He had moved around for quite a bit after that, but they never completely lost touch. Even now, when they were both past thirsty, they were still friends. Sorry, this is a little out of the blue, but would you be able to take my cat for me? It was his precious cat, which unavoidable circumstances were preventing him from keeping any longer, and now he was looking for someone to take care of it. What these unavoidable circumstances were, he did not say. He attached two photos, a cat with two spots, with his forehead forming the character Hachi 8. Whoa! Katsu, Katsuki, Katsuki couldn't help saying, "This cat looks exactly like Hachi." The cat in the photo looked just like the one Satoru and Kazuki had found so many years ago. Kazuki scrolled to the second photo, a close-up of the cat's tail, a hook tail like the number 7. Aren't cats with hook tails supposed to bring good fortune? Thought Kazuki. He tried to recall who had told him that, but realizing it had been his wife, who had gone to live with her parents for a while. Kazuki had no clue when she would be back, and he was beginning to get the faint sense that he never would. With the cat hanging around the house, a cat with a hooked tail to gather in pieces of happiness, maybe it might be good to have a cat, he was thinking. Even a cat photo was good looking. A lot like Hachi, and a hooked tail and everything. He hadn't seen Satoru for a long time. A friend asked me to take his cat for him, so what do you think? Kazuki emailed his wife, and she answered, "Do whatever you like." A tad cold, he thought, but since she hadn't replied to a single email since she had left, it felt good to hear from her at least. He began to wonder if his wife, a true cat lover, might actually come home if he took in the cat. Perhaps, if he told her that he had adopted the animal, but he didn't know how to look after it and begged her to help, perhaps she would come back solely out of sympathy for the cat. No, Dad hates cats, so that won't work. He caught his own knee-jerk reaction. He was worrying, as usual, about what his father might think. This was exactly why his wife had got fed up with him. Kazuki was the one running the business now, and there was no need to worry about how his dad would feel about things. Yet he still did. So, partly as a reaction from his dad, he threw his name, Kazuki Sawada, into the ring as a candidate willing to take his childhood friend Cat. Satoru wasted no time coming over to Kazuki's place, arriving on Kazuki's day off the following week in his silver van, along with his beloved cat. When he heard the car engine outside his shop, Kazuki wandered out to find Satoru pulling up in the shop's parking lot. "Kazuki! It's been ages!" Satoru took his hands off the wheel and waved out of the open driver's side window. "Just hurry up and park," Kazuki urged. He was excited to see Satoru. The guy hadn't changed at all since he was a kid. "You should have parked at the end. It's easier." There were 3 parking spaces for customers right in the front of the shop, and Satoru had pulled into the spot furthest from the entrance, where a small shed and piles of boxes made it a tight fit. "Ah, is that right?" Satoru said, scratching his head as he got out the van. "I didn't want to take up a space in case a customer needed it." "Well, it's done now." He took a cat basket from the seat. "Is that Nana?" "Yep, I sent you a photo so you could see how his tail is shaped like a 7. Great name, don't you think?" I don't know if I'd call it great, exactly. Always choose kind of quirky names, like Hachi." Kazuki ushered them into his living room and tried to get a good look at Nana's face, but all Nana did was give a moody growl and turn himself around. When Kazuki peered into the basket, all he could make out was a black hood tail and a white rear end. "What's the matter, Nana-chan?" Satoru tried to coax that Nana out, but eventually gave up. "Sorry about that. You must be nervous about being in a different house. Give it some time, and I'll sure you'll settle down." They left the basket door open and sat on the sofa together to reminisce over old times. "So you're driving, so alcohol is no good. What would you like to drink? Coffee? Tea?" Kazuki brewed 2 cups of coffee, and Satoru took his carefully and asked, instantly enough, "Is your wife here today?" Kazuki intended to avoid the issue, but after an awkward silence, failed to come up with a plausible excuse. She went back to her parents' place. Oh, Satoru's face was hard to describe. Sorry I didn't realize that was such a point kind of look. Is it okay for you to make a decision about the cat on your own? Won't you two quarrel about it when she comes home? Yes, she likes cats. In fact, taking the cat might lure her back. Yeah, but not everybody likes the same type of cat. I forwarded those photos of Nana to her and asked her what she thought. And she said I should do whatever I like. That doesn't sound she's on board with the idea. It's only time since she left and she's entered in one of her emails. Taking the cat might lure her back. Kasuki had said it as a joke, but he was hoping it might be true. She's not the type of woman to chuck out a cat, and she never comes. If she never comes home, then I'll look after it myself. Either way, I don't see any problem. I see, Satoru said, backing down. And it was now Kasuki's turn to ask the questions. But tell me, why can't you keep the cat anymore? Well, it's just that. Satoru gave a perplexed smile and scratched at the thinning hair on his head. Something came up, and we can't together anymore. Something clicked. Kazuki had known something was Ari when Satoru, who had a 9 to 5 job, had offered to work around Kazuki's day off and come over in the middle of the week. Have you been laid off? Not exactly. Well, in any case, we can't live together anymore. Kazuki didn't pursue it, since Satoru seemed reluctant to talk about it. Anyhow, I gotta find a home for Nana, and I've asked a couple friends. I see. That can't be easy. It made Kazuki want to take the cat even more, as an act of kindness. And besides, it was for Satoru. What about you? Are you okay? Your plans for the future and everything? Thanks for asking. As long as can get Nana settled, I'll be fine. Kazuki sensed that he shouldn't probe any farther. Resisted the, if there's anything I can do, let me know, line. You know, when I saw the photo, I was amazed. Nana's the spitting image of Hachi. Even so, when you see him in the flesh. Satoru glanced back at the basket sitting on the floor, and didn't look like Nana was intending to show his face anytime soon. When I first saw him, I was surprised, and for a second I thought it was Hachi. That was impossible, of course, but the memory saddened him none the less. What happened to Hachi? Kosuke asked. He died when I was in high school. His new owner got in touch, told me it was a traffic accident. Even now, this must have been a painful memory for Satoru. It's been nice that they let you know, though. At least two of them, who had both loved the cat, could mourn together. Satoru must have cried alone many times. Sorry, I didn't. I seem to be getting sadder and sadder here, Satoru said. Don't apologize, you idiot. Kazuki made as to lightly punch him, and Satoru playfully swatted it to avoid it. Time goes by before you know it, Satoru said. Seems like yesterday when you and I found Hachi. Do you remember that? Remember? How could I forget? Kazuki smiled, and Satoru gave a little embarrassed laugh. A short walk from the Sawada photo studio up a gentle slope was a housing complex. 25 years ago, this was considered as an up-and-coming area, with rows of model showroom-like houses and fashionable condo units. Satoru's family had lived in a cozy condo in the neighborhood. Satoru and his parents, the three of them. Satoru and Kazuki had started going to a same swimming club in second grade. Since he was little, Kazuki struggled with skin allergies, and his mother, convinced that swimming would make his skin tougher, had made him go. But Satoru had different reasons for going. He was such a fast swimmer, people said he had webbed hands, and the teachers at his school recommended he learn to swim properly. Always a bit of a joker, Satoru, when they had a free swimming time, would pretend to be a salamander and crawl at the bottom of the pool, then playfully pop up and pounce on the other pupils. What are you, some kind of kappa? The swimming instructor has said, irritated, and the nickname Kappa, a kind of mythical water imp, stuck. Depending on the instructor's mood, he sometimes called him Wedfoot too. Once lessons began, though, Satoru was in the advanced class for kids who could fill in blast, while Kazuki was in the ordinary class that included all the kids like him with allergies. Despite all the Kappa and Wedfoot antics, when Satoru swam at speed down the lane, he looked incredibly cool. Kazuki and Satoru were good friends, but those times Kazuki found Satoru a little annoying. If only I could be like him, he thought enviously. But one day he saw Satoru clowning around, diving into water and cracking his forehead on the bottom, and he was no longer so envious. It was early summer, and they had been going to the swimming club for 2 years. They had always met up at the bottom of the slope in the housing complex to walk to swim club together. And on this day, Kazuki was the first to arrive, and which is why he was the one to discover the box first. A cardboard box had been left below the post with a map of the housing complex on it, and the box was meowing. Hesitantly, Kazuki opened the lid and saw two little white balls of downy fur, with a sprinkly tabby patches here and there. He stared silently at them. Such helpless, soft little things, he thought. They were so tiny he even hesitated to even touch them. Wow, cats! From above him, Satoru's voice rang out. What's up? He said, crouching beside Kazuki. Somebody just left it here. They're so cute. In silence, the two boys timidly stroked the fluffy fur for few moments, and Satoru spoke. Do you want to hold him? You have allergies, so don't ever touch animals. Kazuki could hear his mother's scolding voice in his head, but he couldn't stand and just watch Satoru give him a stroke. Kazuki had the one to find him, after all. He scooped one of them in his hands and placed it on his palm. It was so light. He wanted to keep carrying on stroking them, but they were going to be late for swimming. Reluctantly, they peeled the kittens off of them and returned them to the box. They agreed that they would look in on the kittens on the way back and raced down the road to the swimming club. They were a few minutes late for the class, and the instructor slapped them both on the head. After class, they fell over themselves to get back to the bottom of the slope, below the housing complex. The box was still there, but undersigned. To their dismay, there was only one kitten inside. Somebody must have taken the other. It seemed to them that fate had of the remaining kitten laid in their hands. A kitten with tabby patches on the forehead and the shape of the character Hachi, and with a black hooked tail. The two of them sat down on the grass beside the box and gazed at the little kitten curled up inside it, sleeping soundly. How could any child not want to take this tiny, soft little creature home? What would happen if we did take it home? Each boy knew exactly what the other was thinking. Kasugi knew his mom would be against it because of allergies, and plus his dad wasn't so keen on animals. In contrast to Kasugi, Satoru was quick to come to a decision. I'll ask my mom. That's not fair. Kasugi's reaction was fueled by something that had happened at the swimming club a few days before. A girl Kasugi was clean on saw Satoru swimming in advanced class and murmured, He's pretty cool. Satoru could swim fast. He didn't have any allergies, and his father and mother were both kind people, so that if he took the cat home, they were sure to accept it. Not only did the girl Kasugi like to praise Satoru, but now he would get to keep this tiny, soft creature. That just wasn't fair, was it? When Kazuki told him this, Satoru looked hurt, as if he had been slapped, and Kazuki felt ashamed. He simply had been getting something off his chest, and that was all. I mean, I found it first, he finally blurted out, to which Satoru, honest to a fault, said, Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, you did find him first, Kazuki, so he's your cat. Kazuki regretted snapping at his friend, but all he could manage was a small nod, and they parted a little awkwardly. And Kazuki carried the cardboard box with the kitten inside home. And his mother, surprisingly, wasn't against keeping the kitten. Perhaps it's because of swimming, and you haven't had any allergic reactions lately, so as long as you can keep the house really clean, I think it should be okay. The main obstacle was his father. No way! A cat? Are you insane? And that was his immediate reaction, and he refused to change his mind. And what if he scratched everything with his claws? Look after cat costs money, and I'm not running a photo studio to feed some cat. Kazuki's mother supported her son, but that did seem to make his father even more resistant to the idea. And before they had dinner, he ordered Kazuki to take the cat back where he found it. So, Kazuki, on the verge of tears, trudged back to the slopes of the housing complex, and cardboard box held tightly to his chest. Put the box back on design? He couldn't bring himself to do that, and so he found himself heading for his friend's house. My dad said I can't keep the cat, standing at the door sobbing. Kazuki managed to get the word out. I get it. Satoru said and nodded. Leave it to me. Yeah, I have a great idea. Satoru disappeared inside the house. Kazuki waited at the door and guessing what he was going to ask his mother. if he could eat the cat. Then Satoru appeared with a swimming bag slung across his shoulder. Satoru, where are you going with that? His mother called him from the kitchen. We're gonna have dinner as soon as your father gets home. You go ahead and eat, Satoru called out, slipping into a stranger's at the entrance. Kazuki and I are gonna run away from home for a while. What? Satoru's mother was always so graceful and gentle, and Kazuki had never heard her sound so stern. She seemed to be in the middle of the deep frying tempura, although she wasn't happy about it. She couldn't come to the front door. Instead, she just popped her head out from the kitchen. Ko-chan, what is he talking about? She asked, but Kazuki was equally clueless. Come on, Satoru said. He pulled Kasuri by the hand as they ran out of the house. I read this book at school the other day, Satoru explained, and a boy found a stray puppy and his father got angry and told him to take it back where he had found it. But he couldn't get himself to do it, so he ran away from home. In the middle of the night, his father came looking for him, and in the end, he said he would let him keep it, as long as he looked it after himself. Satoru rattled on excitedly. Well, what are we gonna do if it's exactly what we're gonna do is exactly the same, Kazuki, and I'm sure it'll work out. The only difference is a stray cat, not a dog, and you have to help. You have me to help you. Apart from being a kitten, not a puppy, Kazuki had the feeling that this situation was quite different from the one in the book, though he was, admittedly, quite attracted to the idea of his father feeling sad and giving in if he ran away. He decided to go along with the plan, and the first thing they did was go to a small supermarket to buy some cat food. We'd like food for a kitten, they told the man at the cash register, and the man, whose hair was dyed red, said, Try this, and handed them a can of paste-like meat. The man had looked intimidating at first, but turned out to be unexpectedly kind. Then they had dinner in the park of the housing complex. Sir had grabbed some bread and sweets from his house, and the two of them made to do with that. They opened the can of cat food for the kitten. So, by the middle of the night, I'm guessing we have to hang out here until about 12. Satoru had prudently packed an alarm clock in his bag. But my father won't have a total fit if I stay out late. Kazuki's father seemed friendly enough outside the house, but with the family he was an obstinate man with a short fuse. What are you talking about? We're doing for the cat, aren't we? And besides, he'll forgive you in the end, so it'll all work out. In the book, the father had forgiven his son, but caught up in Satoru's mind in blind enthusiasm, Kazuki didn't feel able to say what was on his mind, namely that his father had a very different personality. He doubted that plan would succeed. After they whiled away the time playing with the cat in the park, a few people, out for a stroll, called out to them. Among them was a woman walking her dogs. What are you doing out this late? Your family will be worried, she said. They were too well known in the neighborhood, and Kazuki started to wonder if they chose the wrong spot. Though Satoru didn't seem at all concerned. Don't worry about us, he told the woman. We're running away. Is that so? Well, you'd better go home right now. A fifth woman came up to them, and Kazuki finally raised an objection. Satoru, I don't think this is how you run away from home. I know, but the book that I came looking for in a park. Yeah, but this doesn't make any sense. At that moment, they heard a voice calling through the cool air. Satoru! It was his mother. And it's late, and enough is enough. Come home now. You got Kazuki's family's worried too. Satoru flinched. There's no way they could have found us so quickly. You didn't think they'd find us? Had Satoru seriously believed they could hide from their parents when they were all these strangers who seemed to know them? I'm sorry, Mom, Satoru shouted. We can't be found yet. Come on, Kazuki. He grabbed the cardboard box and ran with it to the gate leading to the park. Kursuki could do nothing but follow, and it felt like they were straying from the storyline Satuki had described. There should still be time to put that right. Surely there will be. Well, maybe. They managed to shake off Satoru's mother and was sprinting down the slope away from the house complex, and all of a sudden there was a sudden roar. Come back here! And the roar came from Kazuki's father. It was probably too late to put anything right. Maybe we should just apologize, Kazuki was thinking, but Satoru shouted, It's the enemy! The story had taken a different turn now. Run for it! By now, they completely lost sight of the narrative they were supposed to be sticking to. For the time being, all Kazuki was chase after Satoru, who was determined to keep running. Partly and generally his sedentary father couldn't keep up, and they lost him after they rounded the first corner. But the street was totally straight. There was nowhere to hide. Kazuki, this way! Kazuki raced inside a small supermarket where they had bought the can of food. A smattering customers were flipping through magazines while the red-haired clerk literally restocked a shelf. You have to hide us. We're being chased, Satoru shouted, and the clerk looked over them doubtfully. If they catch us, they're gonna get rid of him. Satoru showed the card box, and a siren-like yowl rang from it. The clerk stared at the box for a moment and headed to the back of the shop, motioning them to follow, and passed through the door, and the clerk pointed to the back exit. You're a lifesaver! Satoru scampered out, followed by Kazuki. He turned and gave a small bow of thanks, and the clerk wordlessly waved a hand at them. From there, they scurried from place to place, but they were only children. They were so far their legs could carry them. Finally, they ran to their elementary school. Satoru's odd little plan to run away from home had caused quite a little disturbance, so much that the news had gotten all around the neighborhood, and they got legged it into the school grounds. All grown-ups were hot on their heels. They prized open a window, and that one that all the pupils knew was out of kilter and didn't lock properly, and slipped into the school building. The adults had no idea how to get in, so they ran out helplessly outside, while the boys made their way up to the top floor. They spilled out onto the roof so they could at last put down the cardboard box with the kid inside. I hope he is okay. He's quite shaken up. There was no sound, so they opened it. The kitten was nestled in a corner. Kazuki hesitantly reached his arm inside to touch it. Pya! The kitten started to howl even louder than before. Shh! You'll give us away! The two boys tried to calm the kitten, but the cats don't listen often. Crouched down, shushing at each other, they could hear voices calling out. I hear a cat! It's coming from the roof! The grown-ups had started to gather below. Kazuki! Enough! One angry voice rose up from the crowd, and that of Kazuki's father. From his tone, it was easy to guess that his son was in for a beating. Kazuki, in tears, turned to Satoru. It didn't work. You lied, Satoru. It isn't over. We can still pull this off. Again, a voice called down from below. Satoru, come down right this minute. Satoru's father had joined their pursuers. We can go up the fire escape. Someone piped up. It became clear that Suki's father, his face burning with rage, was already climbing the stairs. It's all over now. Katsuki mumbled, holding his hand on his head. Satoru ran over the railing on the roof and leaned over it. Sorry, shut up! If you don't, he's gonna jump! A murmur ran through the crowd. What? Katsuki was horrified. What are you doing, Satoru? When he grabbed Satoru's sleeve, Satoru gave him a blazing grin and a thumbs up. I'll come back, he said. It wasn't what Katsuki was hoping for. It didn't seem enough to stop Katsuki's father dead in his track. Satoru, is that true, what you said? His Satoru's mother yelled from below. Oh, it's true, it's true. Satoru yelled back. He just took off his trainers. Oh my god, people screamed from below. Kazuki, calm down now, kid. This was from Satoru's father, and Kazuki's father roared. Stop buggering around. Even from above, it was clear he was furious. Stop whining. I'm coming up, and I'll drag you down from there if I have to. Don't do that, Mr. Sawada. Kazuki's really going to do it. Satoru shouted to stop it. If you come up here, he'll jump off, and he'll take the cat with him. Satoru turned to Kazuki with a grave expression. Kazuki, could you, kind of straddle the railing? Kazuki replied that no way he's going to risk his life with it. But look, if you want to keep the cat, don't you? But sure, for the sake of the cat, did you really have to go this far? Well, for one thing, the story Satoru had read about the boy running away hadn't ended up with the puppy and him and the puppy jumping to their deaths. Listen, can we ask first whether it's okay to keep the house at your house, Satoru? What? Satoru asked and looked as startled as the pigeon like Iris thought. You mean it's okay for me to have the cat? Man, if you thought that, then you would have said so. Beamed. Satoru called out to the crowd down below. Dad, Mum, Kazuki says he wants us to have the cat. Okay, but first talk to Kazuki out of jumping. A storm of misunderstandings seemed to be swirling around the crowd of garments who didn't have a clue what was going on. Satoru, you really weren't too bright of a child, were you? I could hear Kazuki and Satoru's conversation inside my basket. I'd never heard such a mad story in my life. It was after we had came down from the roof that things got heavy. Your dad thumped us pretty hard, Kazuki. I remember the next day my head looked like the great Buddha in Nara. The cat had thrown the whole neighborhood into such an uproar was my procedure that the cat, yeah, Hachi apparently. Speaking of which, Hachi was a male tabby, wasn't he? Aren't male tabbies supposed to be quite rare? Asked Kazuki. Is that so? Well, since Hachi and I have the same markings, I must be a pretty rare specimen myself. I had pricked up my ears to listen in, and Satoru said, smiling, "Well, the thing is, I asked the vet about it, and he said his markings are too few for him to be classified as a tabby." Really? Other than his forehead and his tail, I mean, it's true. He was pure white. Kazuki paused. Man, he said, raising his arms and then crossing them in front of his chest. I could see this all through the gaps in my basket. I was thinking that if I had told my father it was a valuable male tabby, then might have been able to convince him to keep it. Kazuki looked over the basket and quickly turned my head over away so not meeting his eye. Too much to bother if he tries to get all friendly on me. What about Nana? His face looked exactly like Hachi's. What about his his markings? Nana can't be classified as a tabby either. He's just a moggy. Well, excuse me. I glared at the back of Satoru's head and went on. But to me, Nana's much more valuable than a male tabby. It's fate, don't you think? That he looks just like the first cat that I ever had. Well, when I first laid eyes on him, I knew someday he had to be my own precious cat. Harumph. You're just saying because it sounds good. I know what you're getting at, but still. Maybe that's why I saw Satori crying that day. After I was hit a car and driving myself back to his place, he'd mentioned that Hachi had died in a traffic accident. Satoru must have thought he was going to lose another precious cat to their car accident. That was one good cat. Hachi, so well behaved. Kazuki said, so which Satoru replied with a smile, though he wasn't very athletic. So according to what I've heard, he was the type whose legs were a little spongy when somebody grabbed the back of his neck. And the cat who couldn't catch mice, in other words. Pretty pathetic, if you ask me. A real cat would immediately fold in its legs. And me? I'm a real cat, naturally. I caught my first sparrow when I was less than 6 months old. And catching something with wings is a lot trickier than catching any four-legged land creature. Believe you me. When he was playing with the catnip toy, he'd go dizzy chasing it around, because he was usually pretty placid. What about Nana? He loves mouse toys, and that the kind made out of rabbit fur. Hold on a sec. I can't let that pass. Since when did I love that awful fake mouse? It smells like the real thing, so if you throw it near me, of course I'll fight with it, no matter how much I chomp on it. No tasty juice coming out, and when I finally calm down, I'm warming out, and the whole thing's been a total waste of time. Do you understand? And there was that manga on TV sometimes where the samurai cuts down a dingback in size. That was such a waste of a good sword. To me, that's kind of how it feels. You've hunted down yet another useless thing. By the way, Satoru prefers the shows with guns, and at least they could, and the least they could do was to stuff those toys with white meat. And I could take this complaint to the pet toy makers. Stop worrying about what the owners think and pay some attention to your real clients. Your real clients are folk like me. In any case, one of the pointless chances I usually let off steam with a good walk, but Satoru usually tags along and it makes it hard to do any successful hunting. What I mean is, the minute I spot some decent game, Satoru interferes, and deliberately makes some careless noise or movement, and when I glare at him, he feigns ignorance, and all that racket gives us away. Thank you very much. When I got when I get upset and I wave my tail energetically from side to side, he gives me this pathetic look and tries to explain. You have lots of crunchies at home to eat, don't you? You don't need to kill anything. Even if you catch something, you barely eat it. Idiot. You idiot. 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 Every living creature on Earth is born with an instinct to kill. You can try to dodge it by bringing in vegetarianism, but you don't hear a plant scream when you kill it. Hunting down what can be hunted is a cat's natural instinct. Sometimes we hunt things, but we don't eat them. But that's what training is all about. My God, what spineless creatures they are. those that don't kill the food they eat. So true, a human being, of course. So he just doesn't get it. Is Nana good at hunting? He's beyond good. He caught a pigeon that landed on her porch. Right you are. Those blasted birds get all superior in human territory. And I thought I'd show them what's what. In Satorio, all teary-eyed, always asks, "Why don't you catch them if you're not going to eat them? If that's the way you think, then don't interfere. Don't interfere when I hunt on our walks." And it didn't and didn't Satoru complain about pigeon droppings on the lawn tree he had hunted out to try? That he'd be happy if I chased the pigeon away and I get to hunt. Literally, two birds with one stone. So why the complaints? And by the by, ever since that incident, the pigeons have never come near our porch again. And but I heard a word of thanks? Still waiting. It was a real problem at that time, Satoru said. A sparrow or a mouse I could bury in the bushes next to the apartment building, but something the size of a pigeon, that's a different story. I ended up burying it in a park, and the only conclusion anybody who spotted me, a 30-year-old man burying a pigeon, com- could come to is that I was a pretty dodgy character. There are more weird things happening these days too. Right. Every time someone passes by, I would say apologetically, "Sorry, sorry, but the cat did it." And they looked at me really oddly. And wouldn't you know it, that one occasion Nerna wasn't with me. Ah, so he had an awkward time, did he? I should have been with him, but Satoru didn't tell me, so it's his fault, and I'm not gonna apologize. Sounds like Nana's wilder than Hachi. But he's quite gentle sometimes, like Hachi. When I feel depressed or down, he's always snuggled up close. Not that hearing those words makes me happy or anything. Sometimes I get the feeling he can understand what people are saying. He's pretty bright. Humans who think we don't understand them are the stupid ones. Hachi was a very kind cat. Whenever my father had to go at me and I went to your house tutorial, he'd sit on my lap and refuse to jump off. He understood when people were feeling down and my parents had an argument, he'd always side with the one who lost. It made it easy for me as a child to tell one who had won and who had lost. I wonder if Nail would do the same too. I'm pretty sure he's pretty kind. Hachi seems to be a decent sort of cat, but going on and on about Hachi this and Hachi that made me think, if a cat's that dead was so good, maybe I should die too and let them see how they like that. I'm sorry, Kazuki suddenly murmured. I should have taken Hachi from you back then. There was nothing we could do about it. Satori sounded like he didn't hold a grudge, but instead, looking at Kazuki, it seemed to me he was the one who did it. Though Satori's family had brought Hachi up, it was as though Kazuki had did the job half the time. Whenever he went over to Satoru's, he played tirelessly with Hachi, and Satoru sometimes took the cat over to Kazuki's house. At first, Kazuki's father stubbornly refused to let Hachi in the house, so they played in the garage but before long his mother let them bring the cat inside, not into the studio. And little by little his father got used to it. He warned them not to let Hachi sharpen his claws on the walls or the furniture. But sometimes when he passed by, Kazuki's father would say a few nice things to Hachi. Kazuki regretted that he couldn't have Hachi himself, but he was very happy when his father played with him. Felt like his father was meeting him halfway, and he ever hoped he would ever find another stray kitten. But he allowed himself to keep it for himself, because it was a very special thing to have your cat in your home. Whenever he stayed overnight at Sartorius, sleeping on the futon beside his bed, he often be woken in the early hours of the 4 feet clomping over him, feeling the weight of a cat's paws pressing to his shoulder in the middle of the night. Not much beats that. He would glance over and see Hachi curled up in a ball on top of Sartoriu's chest. Perhaps finding it was too hard to breathe, Sartoru, still asleep, would slide the cat beside him. Lucky guy, Sartoru cat. If he were my cat, we could sleep together, and I would let him walk all over me. My father seemed to have taken a liking to Hachi, and maybe I'm thinking, maybe if we can find another stray kitten, and he might let me keep it. That'd be great. When Hachi would have a friend. The idea made Satoru happy, and on the way to and from the swimming club, he kept an eye out for another box with a kitten inside it. But there was never another cardboard box with a kitten inside left under the housing complex sign. Of course, it was a good thing that no more poor cats were being abandoned. But because even if they had found another cat, Kazuki's father would still wouldn't have let him keep it. 2 years since Hachi had gone to live at Satoru's, Kazuki and Satoru were now in the sixth grade of elementary school. Autumn had shed its leaves. Their school organized a residential trip, 3 days and 2 nights in Kyoto. Kazuki could do without the temples, and they all looked the same to him. But he overjoyed to be staying away overnight with his friends, far from home, and having more spending money than he ever imagined to buy souvenirs was exciting too. There were plenty of things that he wanted to buy for himself, and could he could barely he had also had to remember to buy presents for his family. One day, when he was in the souvenir shops, Satoru had a worried look in his face. "What's wrong?" says Keisuke. "I'm wondering if I I'm wondering which one to buy." Satoru had was looking at all the kind of faces of facial blotting paper on the cosmetics display. Mom asked me to buy some blotting paper, but I've forgotten which brand she wanted. Aren't they all the same? Satoru didn't seem to know one way or the other. So Kasuki said, "Why don't you buy her a gift another time?" "Okay, I'll get something for Dad." "Yeah, you should. I'll get something for my dad too." They wandered around the few shops, and Kazuki was the first to decide what to get. A, a good luck Maneki Neko and keyring in with a banner with on the back said read success in business. Of course, and they had an ulterior motive behind this choice. His father might begin to like cats. "Oh, that's great." Satoru's eyes sparkled at the comical expression of the Makaneko cat's face. "But we don't have a lot of family business, so that slogans won't work. There are a lot of others besides success in business." Satoru figured out on the two slogans of the banners that made the most sense for his father were health comes first and road safety. The third read harmony in home, but he wasn't exactly sure what that meant. Satoru ended up picking up the keyring with the road safety banner because he thought Makaneko's cat resembled Hachi, and he hadn't bought blotting paper for his mother. But he said he'd look for some the following day. But after lunch the next day, Satoru was gone. In their class assembled, the teacher explained that Mawaki-kun had returned home before us. Ah, poor Satoru. His classmates all murmured to each other how sorry they were. They imagined themselves in Satoru's place, having to go home early. Sawada-kun, do you know why? Katsuki had heard nothing. Satoru had gone home without saying a thing, even to his best friend. So something very serious must have happened, and Satoru hadn't even bought the blotting paper for his mother. She'll be disappointed, Katsuki thought, when only his father get a souvenir. That's it! Katsuki had a sudden flash of inspiration. I'll buy it for him, that whatchamacallit blotting paper. But how am I going to work out which brand she wants? As long as he was mulling over this, the school group went on a visit to Kinkajui, the temple of the Golden Pavilion. This glittery temple was unique, totally different from all the sober-looking ones they had seen up until then. There were squeals of disbelief among the students when they saw it. "Man, that's gaudy," was the consensus. If only Satoru was here to see it, Kasugi thought, in his heart aching. During their free time, a couple of girls in his class were hanging around in a souvenir shop, but when he spied them, Kasuki was struck by another flash of inspiration. "The girls will know. Blotting paper is something girls use." "Hey!" Kasuki called over the girls, who were turning away at each other like a pair of chirping birds. "Do you know what brand of blotting paper is supposed to be kind of famous?" They both shot back at the same reply. "You mean Yojiya, Yojiya. They've back in the store over there." The girls were about to head over there themselves, so Kasugi went with them. Cheapest blotting paper was over 300 yen, and thinking how much on spending he had left, Kasugi hesitated. But felt sorry for Satoru, having to go home in the middle of a school trip, and he was Satoru's best friend. Satoru probably feels worse for not getting the gift for his mother and having to go home early, he thought, and Kasugi was the only one who understood that. He had no clue what was so special about this blotting paper, but he went ahead and bought the pack, with a distinctive drawing of the Koshiki doll on its wrapping. The package was so thin and flimsy looking, he was doubtful that Satoru's mother would really want it. But that's what Satoru had decided on. Sawada-kun, did your mother ask you to buy Yojiwa paper? Nope. Satoru's mother asked him, and he was searching it all for the shops, but he went back without buying any. You're such a good guy, Sawada-kun, the girls gushed. It was not a bad feeling. Mawai-kun's mother will love it. It's a famous brand. Is it really that famous? Kosuke was surprised and at the same time relieved. He was convinced that now Satoru's mother would appreciate the gift, no matter how flimsy it seemed.